All right, guys, time to grow up, moving out of your parents' house. You got a job, you're all ready to go. Maybe you're moving to a new city. Maybe you're moving, somewhere else in the country, even in a new country. So you got to ask yourself, are you going to rent or are you going to buy a house? Now, most people start off by renting somewhere in some way. Typically, not having a down payment saved up and not being as established. Renting's usually a good place to start. Also, if you're moving to a new city, you're not sure you're going to like that city. You're not sure you're going to stay there a very long time. This new career you're taking on, are you going to stay there for years to come, or is it going to be a short-lived visit? So usually renting would make that renting's more flexible, has a lower entry cost, and it gives you opportunity to build a credit history. It gives you an opportunity to save up some money for a down payment so that you can eventually buy a home. Some people rent their entire life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people prefer the fact that they don't have to maintain a home and so forth. Buying a home is oftentimes a big way people build wealth. It's the largest purchase most people make in their entire life. Paying it off over a number of years, you end up building up. You build up an asset, and you have something of value when it's all said and done. So we're going to talk about some pros and cons here, renting, buying. All right, so we're going to start off with renting. Okay, typically getting into a rental, you're going to need first and last month's rent to start off. Okay, so you got 2 months rent. When you're walking into this situation, you'll pay a monthly rent to a landlord. The landlord is responsible for the maintenance of that property. There's all kinds of laws and protections to protect you as a landlord. As a tenant, against drastic rent increases, poor living conditions, and so forth. But at the end of the day, landlord's responsible for the maintenance of that property. But the landlord's also building his own wealth, his or her own wealth, by taking your rent money and paying their mortgage. Some cons, you're not building that wealth, but on the flip side, maybe you're saving money, you're investing it otherwise, and building up a down payment. Maybe you don't like the floors in your apartment or the home you're renting. Well, you're probably not just going to be able to tear them out and put new floors down. You might even be restricted on, are you going to be able to paint? And so forth. You might not be able to have pets, and you might want a pet, something like that. So renting, does have its pros, that it's a low entry cost, and so forth, and it's typically a lower payment. But the cons are you don't have as much say into what your actual living conditions are like there. But the flexibility, also an added benefit. Okay. Looking at a mortgage payment. So most people don't just have a big wad of cash that they can go and say, all right, I'm buying a $300,000 home. Boom, here's $300,000. So most people have to get into a mortgage payment. There's all types of different mortgage payments out there. I'm going to talk about some traditional ones here. So it's usually a 10 to 30-year term. Oftentimes people start off with a 30-year term, might refinance to a shorter term once they're more established, once they begin making more money, something like that. But what goes into that actual payment? Because it's not just the loan for the money that you're borrowing. Often, so principal and interest, that's the loan. Okay, principal is what you owe. The interest is what percentage you're paying. Because remember, the bank gave you their money to make that purchase. Now they want to make money by you paying them the interest back. Now, typically what's referred to as escrowed into your mortgage payment. A bank doesn't want to give you money, you buy a home, and then you don't pay your property taxes, and then you lose your home. Or you don't have homeowners insurance, and then somehow you get sued and lose your home. So the bank will oftentimes require that you escrow your property tax and homeowners insurance into your loan. Property tax will creep up a little bit over the years. Homeowners insurance might also creep up over the year. Then there's also something called a personal mortgage insurance. Sounds great. Oh, it's protecting you. It's what it sounds like, that it's personal. Well, in all reality, it's protecting the bank. If you stop paying, and it's an insurance policy they take out on you, but they make you pay for that insurance policy. You can avoid paying a personal mortgage insurance if you have more than 20% down on the property or 20% of equity in the home. Oftentimes, personal mortgage insurance drops off after a number of years. Some communities require a homeowners association fee. That's also oftentimes added in your mortgage payment. So, looking at a couple different loans here, we're going to see how, again, your credit history can affect this. So, I found a house in Douglasville. It's about 2,300 square feet. It's got 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 2-car garage, $265,000. The property taxes are $6,800 a year. So this is an actual home I found. Okay, I'm ignoring when we look at these numbers here, I'm not counting closing costs. And one of the reasons it's not as flexible when you own a home is because there are substantial closing costs. There's when you go to purchase that home. The closing costs include paying a title company, loan creation fees. You're paying a realtor commission. The seller's paying a realtor commission. So there's all these different things that go into closing costs. That could be over $10,000 for closing costs. Sometimes well over $10,000. But anyway, not factoring that into this. Let's just look at this simple loan. All right. So you got a 30-year loan. Included what you're going to be paying every month because you got $6,800 a year in taxes. We got $566 a month in taxes. You got $88 a month in your homeowner's insurance. Personal mortgage insurance is about $100 a month. And then that will drop off after 66 months. So you got a loan, 3.8% APR. You put $10,000 down. So you're financing just under $250,000. Your monthly payment, $1,860. That includes everything you need to have escrowed into your payment. That will be for the first year. Now, it might creep up a little bit if your property taxes go up a little or if your homeowner's insurance goes up. But unlike rent, where the landlord can increase the rent a certain amount each year, and we see in certain areas of the country, rent has drastically increased over the last 10 years. Once you're locked into a loan, your principal and interest doesn't change all that much. Okay, so now over the course of that loan, you have paid $161,000 in interest. So you paid back the $265,000, and then you also paid back $161,000 in interest. That's why the bank gave you the money in the first place. All right, now let's look at it. Your credit is not as good. You get a higher interest rate. You're buying the same house. You're putting the same amount of money out of pocket when you show up. The taxes, insurance, everything else is the same. But now you're paying $2,000 a month because of that interest rate. Over the life of the loan, you're paying $212 in interest. So that house, over the course of 30 years, cost you an extra $50,000 simply because your credit wasn't as good. Now, if you repaired your credit, your circumstances change, whatever, you can refinance, get a better interest rate down the road. But just for the sake of comparison, you see those two samples. Now, some people, oftentimes if you're more established, if you have some equity build up, or you might switch to a 15-year loan. Okay, if you're buying the same house with a 15-year loan, you're going to get a lower APR because it's less risk for the bank. So maybe they're giving you 3.2% at 10% down again. Now, your monthly payment's higher, but you're only paying for 15 years instead of 30 years. Okay, so some people say to themselves, well, you know what? I'm going to pay the extra $600 a month over the original loan I described there, and I'm going to be done much, much sooner. The personal mortgage insurance drops much, much sooner. And over the course of the loan, you're paying $100,000 less in interest. Okay, that's money that stayed in your pocket instead of going to the banks. Now, you're paying more per month, but that's an option that works for some people. Again, buying a home, one of the biggest investments most people make in their entire life. It is a way to build an asset. You gain an asset when you purchase a home. Most houses will gain value over time. Where if you're purchasing a car or you're purchasing electronics or something like that, they will lose value over time. A house typically gains value over time. Okay, so look at that if you're thinking about when you're buying a house. Again, credit history plays into that. All right, so be sure to check back on Friday. I'm going to have a video for you, a little send off. And I'd really appreciate it if you checked it out. So be on the lookout for that. Take care.